if someone is looking to build a tiny structure, what is the right way to do it for cheap? Because everyone's looking to build it for cheap. What is the right way that their tiny house, their yurt, their cabin isn't going to fall apart in under 10 years? Like, how
Yeah.
do you build it cheap but smart?
Keep It Tiny, a show where we discuss in depth the business side of tiny homes, glamping, tents, domes, and everything in between.
So, I would say my first question for you is, how did you get into building tiny homes? Like, I know that you have a background in a history as a builder, like that is what you do. But how do you pull that and start building tiny homes for people, and like what kind of drew you into that?
So, like most things, it was out of necessity. So, it started with a bus conversion. I don't know if you've seen those, the Schoolies.
Yeah.
Dad has always wanted to go to Sturgis and whatnot, and he bought a school bus. And then when you're the only person that owns land, I live on 26 acres. I live on a mini farm.
Okay.
You tend to inherit everybody's stuff. So next thing I know, there's a school
Hmm.
bus parked on my property, and it was just converted. And then, my background is in construction. So did a ton of remodels, did things like that. And then all of a sudden, the she, she shed movement, whatever you want to call that, where you turn,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
what
Yeah. The she shed.
the she sheds. You're like, I have got to get away, or you make a man cave or something. And it's like, hey,
Hmm.
what can we do with this space? And so, it doesn't always have to be something like that. We've done, yeah, like containers, literally containers off a container ship. We'll modify those. Hey, let's put a split unit in there and let's turn it into something. Or like I said, a
Yeah.
she shed. Somebody will go to some box store. Lowe's, Home Depot's around here. I don't know what you have up north, Menards or
Yeah.
whatever it is, but. They'll buy something. What can we do with this? And we're like, well,
Hmm.
yeah. How much money do you have, and what do you want to do? So, I mean, it just kind of snowballed from there. So I've done
Okay.
probably three or four completely. You've done some like minor stuff to other things, but yeah, man, it'd be cool to do this full time because I mean
Yeah.
all about affordable housing now. It's just you
For
gotta
sure.
you gotta
For
fight
sure.
everything now.
Cool. So, what was your most recent project that you built
Um,
in
we
terms of like tiny, like what, whatever the structure would be?
so I've been fortunate. I've kind of built myself into a niche to where I'm like a referral base, so to speak. So
Hmm.
I've got where I live. I live in Tennessee, and walking horses are huge here. What they do, but I've got a bunch of horse arena clients, and they are next level, so you speak. I mean, it's like they
Hmm.
have money. No is not an option. Figure it out. They're really
Okay.
cool, love them to death. But we did a container off the side of his horse arena, and that is where she goes. It's kind of like a bona fide tack room slash office, and I wish I had pictures and stuff. I kind of came unprepared for this, but maybe in the
No,
future,
no
maybe
problem.
like, hey, what do you have, and we'll just figure it out and throw it up. But that one was neat. Obviously, we did. My dad had a schoolie, so we did that. Over the course of 2 years. I mean, jacking up the roof and all that. You learned a lot on that one. That one was interesting. We're both kind of like, hey, let's just figure it out and go with it.
What were some of the biggest challenges with building the schoolie, like the school bus transformation?
A lot of figuring it out as you go. It's not like when you're building a regular house where you have a set foundation. You're literally on four tires. You're hoping all the air pressure is equalized. You don't have anything that's level, square, plumb, anything. And then dad and myself are both just like one man show. So if neither of us are there, we got to figure out how do you jack up a
Hmm.
roof with two people. Like so,
Yeah.
any contractor, any tradesman, you have your homemade tools and tricks of the trade. So we did a lot of in-house
Yeah.
fabrication to, by the time you cut off the roof, hey, we got to have a support over here. And it's all about trying not to kill yourself, really. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of that. Like how can we do this without dying?
Yeah. So what do you think was like the hardest part of doing the school bus transformation, and what was like the easiest portion?
Uh, so the hardest part, if you really want to deep dive into the story, the
Hmm.
school bus, we were on the road to punching out the interior. We had just finished the exterior, and it literally caught on fire and was destroyed. I know. I left one day, and so long story short, it's an argument between me and my father. What actually happened? He was grinding on it. He had just put the foam board on the bottom of it, put the subfloor in, and was grinding on it. And that's how I think. I think an ember got in there and sparked it. But then he also thinks that I was burning out on the property. And regardless, I came home and it looked like a scene out of Rambo. There was a 20-foot fireball coming out of this thing where the propane tank hit, the relief
Wow.
valve was going. So uh, that was a heartburn for sure. Yeah, I mean, we had 2 years into this thing, and it was just destroyed. Um, but the hardest part was probably jacking up the roof and then welding it all back
Hmm.
together and trying to keep everything tight and square to the original frame. Um,
Hmm.
and then the hardest part for me was tearing it up and hauling it off the scrapyard. Man, that was bittersweet. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's 2 years of your life. Like, see ya. I was like, there's
Yeah. That
nothing you can
hurts.
do. Oh yeah, it was
That hurts.
painful.
Yeah. So you are like, and that's why I really wanted to have you on my YouTube channel. You're the real deal. Like you have a construction background. You're not like some guy building things in his parents' garage.
Oh no.
So my question to you is, when people are looking for experienced builders, whether they're building a yurt, tiny home, dome, school bus conversion, etc., what are some of the things that people should be looking out for when they're reaching out to builders? Like, how do they know they found a good one?
That is a good question. With me, like I said, I built myself into like a niche where I'm 100% referral based, and that's kind of how I
Hmm.
like it. I wanted to be, um, not necessarily with the multimillionaire, so to speak, but people who had money, who had an idea, had a budget, and were good to go. Um,
Hmm.
and people of like-minded kind of stick together. So one
Hmm.
refers after other. I would look. I hate to bash anybody. This is where I'm going to get in trouble, but edit
Yeah,
this
I mean, you
out.
don't have to say any names, but yeah,
Edit this out as you will. I call it truthful Tourette's. I'm just going to let it fly. So, um,
please do, because what you're
yeah,
going to be doing is helping others save money.
yeah.
Because I've had horror stories with builders.
Well, that believe it or not, during the remodels, 90% of my stuff fixing was new construction, like less than
Hmm.
2, 3 years old, and it's what we call in industry putting lipstick on a pig. Like all you
Hmm.
see the granite, you see the finishes, but you don't see the bones, you don't see the structure, you
Hmm.
don't see how it was installed. And here in Tennessee, I don't know how it is in other states, you have a 1 year warranty, and
Hmm.
we call it the parking lot warranty. Once they leave, like good luck getting them back. And
Yeah.
and it's just a nightmare. You want I would say the best bet is focus on referrals. You can Google the almighty Google. You can get a good source of names that way. But honestly, I would get on your local social media, your Facebook, whatnot, and look for people who. Everybody on the internet is 6 foot tall and bulletproof, man. They will tell you the
Yeah.
good, the bad, the ugly. So if you're like, oh, this guy's good, go on the Facebook page. Let's see if he really is, because
Hmm.
everybody will tell you good news is hard to travel, but bad news, man, everybody wants to just dog somebody these days.
Hmm.
So that's a good way. Get on your local Facebook groups. I
Okay.
don't know how it is, where you're at, but we have like local communities, and be like,
Yeah.
get on their Facebook pages and be like, hey, who did you use? Who did you have a good
Yeah.
experience with? Um,
Hmm.
Another good thing is, do interviews. I mean, eh, this is where I really get mad, and it goes back to the education of the clients and the builders. We have done a horrible job educating the consumers, so to speak. But
Hmm.
you know, nothing is for free in this world. So
Yeah.
if you wanted me to come out and consult, you're paying me. Like, oh, I
Yeah.
expect a free estimate. Well, that automatically tells me you're not my client, because if $125 breaks your budget, Imagine what it's going to be on a $50,000 to $100,000 build, and that's
Very
little.
true.
So you get what you pay for. However, I always word
Hmm.
it that the consultation fee, if you choose to go with me, I credit you that back. But it's
Okay.
also, I drive a Dodge Ram 2500. Diesel is not cheap. And I was like, I could spend all
Yeah.
day, every day, driving everywhere and just giving you free advice, only for you to go, hey, I like all your ideas, and I'm going to go find somebody that will do it for nothing. But he wasn't intelligent enough to bring those ideas to the table. So that's what you want.
Yep.
You want the best of both worlds. Ask to look at past projects. Like every
Hmm.
client that I have my own version of kind of like Craigslist. It's a Google Drive, and I'm like, hey, if you don't mind, can I take pictures throughout the progress? And do you mind if I post them? And if they do, I give them a referral fee, and I'll be like, hey, if you don't mind somebody showing up or whatnot. And if you do a good job, most of my clients turn out to be friends. When you're
Yeah,
doing
they'll go out and tell people
oh,
for you.
they'll tell everybody. And when you're
Hmm.
doing a bathroom remodel, you see the good, bad, and the ugly. I mean, you're gonna get real close to people.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, they'll
So
tell
you
everybody
said
that they'll be your biggest champions for sure.
with the interview, like what type of questions should you be asking the builder to know if they're legit?
So this is where I'm also gonna get in trouble. So number one, I'd say, are you licensed, bonded, and insured? And
Hmm.
by that, do a deep dive. Most people are like, yeah, I'm licensed. Well, does that mean you have a business or a city license, or does that mean you actually have a contractor's license? On top of that, here, there's multiple levels. You have a renovation license, you have a limited residential license, you have a full-fledged GC and commercial license. What are you licensed for? Not just like
Hmm.
anybody can get a license. And honestly, that's the first step, but that's not the end all be all, because here, to get your GC license, it's an open book test. If you can't pass
Okay.
that and you only have to make a 70, it's not that all you have to do is pass the test. It doesn't mean you have to know what you're doing. It means you have to find somebody who says they know what they're doing, that fits in your budget, that you
Hmm.
can pass on to the consumer. That is
Hmm.
where there's a big disconnect, and it as a referral based person, it frustrates me to no end. Like, there's nothing worse than to come to a client and like, I had a horrible experience. I was like, it's about to get worse, because not only did you pay this person to do all this, you're going to pay twice as much, because now I got to rip it out and redo everything. Um,
Hmm.
so do that, but look at the license. Uh, Check out his insurance and make sure it's valid. Just because they send it to you doesn't mean that it's still current. I can't tell you how many horror stories. Yeah, it's just a quick phone call to get insurance. They're like, hey, let me pay $50 or whatever it is, and they'll cancel it immediately once they have the debt page. Check that
Yeah.
out. Also do an interview with them. Like, sit down with, or her. Don't let me be misogynist or whatnot. Whoever it is that you go with. Um, do an in-person interview, because you're going to be spending a lot of time. And just because they say they know what they're doing, that's great. What if your personalities don't jive? Like, there's nothing
Hmm.
worse than, your personalities clash and it's constantly finger pointing and whatnot. You're going to have a bad experience. Ask them, what material do you use? Who are your suppliers? And there's another thing right there. Not only Facebook group, go to your local vendors. They'll tell you who's the good ones, because they're constantly buying
Hmm.
material. They'll tell you who shops around. Like, if somebody's
So that's
loyal,
like the lumber yards
that
and.
the lumber yards, go to the plumbing supply house. You can go to Lowe's or Home Depot. Don't ask the cashier. Go to the pro desk, where the
Uh,
professionals go, and be like, hey,
hmm.
who comes in here all the time? Who do you have a good relationship with? Because if you have a good relationship with your vendors, that means they're probably going to have a good relationship with you. And if they know you, that's huge. Like, it's all about networking, who you know. And honestly, I hate to say this too, contractors, we're construction. We're about the bottom of the barrel. It doesn't get any lower than us. We will tell you exactly how it is and have no
Hmm.
qualms about it. So
Yeah.
look at that. That would be a good one. And then, just kind of go from there. If you can see past projects, that's even better. Or be like, hey, it's not just the finished project. Show me the progress pics. Like, did you cover anything up, or did you be like, hey, that's
Okay.
not acceptable? I had to rip this out, and explain to them why. That's important.
Okay.
I would focus more on, and here's the thing, in the tiny home industry, nothing's regulated. It's like anybody and
Yeah.
everybody can do this. So it's kind
Yeah,
of
it's a
like
free for all.
it's a free for all, and it's exciting because no, man, I not to get political, I'm more of a libertarian. I ask, for forgiveness and permission, like just
Uh-huh.
just do it. However, that can also get a lot of people in trouble because once you cover it up, you can't see anything. And how do you know
Yeah.
that you have a lemon? I get there
Hmm.
needs to be some regulation. However, how do you regulate that? I mean, you hear all the
Yeah.
horror stories with the RVs and whatnot. Get on any RV forum, they're junk,
Hmm. Yeah.
absolute junk. They come straight from the manufacturer with all kinds of problems, and they know it.
Yeah.
Hey, I mean, how do you know that you're not getting this with a tiny home? So I would
Hmm.
focus more on, something that small. You shouldn't need 10 or 15 different subs. You should have somebody that is either a one or a two-man show or has, a qualified team that's in-house that can do it all. And that way
Hmm.
they can control quality. Um, and I'd focus more on craftsmanship. It's what I did, and that's how I have the reputation that I do. Um, you get what you pay for. I'm not the cheapest, I'm not the most expensive, but I'm fair. And at the end of the
Yeah.
day, I'm referral based. It doesn't behoove me to do a shoddy job. You want you
Hmm.
want you want your clients to be your advertisement, and it is. It's a walking billboard. I mean, right now,
Yeah.
and it's a blessing and a curse. It's first world problems. My phone rings off. If my phone rings off the
Nice.
hook, and it's a
It's
great
always a good
thing.
problem to have.
It's a good problem, but it's also like I hate telling people no because if you're good in the industry, you
Hmm.
love what you do, you want to help everybody out, but there's only so much of you to go around, and so it's like, hey, the first thing is, can you wait? And that
Hmm.
ticks everybody off. Right now, if you're looking and you're ready to start now, if somebody goes, great, I'm gonna start next week, run, just absolutely run
Hmm.
because it means they're
Hmm.
probably not any good. Why can they start next week? And it's not just I mean, I'm fortunate where we live. I'm right out of Nashville, so we're the fastest growing area in the country. I mean, right next
Yeah.
to Austin and Florida and whatnot. Just for some reason, everybody wants to move here, which is awesome. But there's not enough skilled hands, skilled trades to go around, and
Yeah.
that we could deep dive into that later. I mean, we could put on our
So
tinfoil hats why that is,
yeah.
but regardless
So let me
what you
ask you
do, yeah, go ahead.
let me ask you a question about a different topic, and it's really I want to know a builder's perspective of this. So feel free to be as honest as you can. Have you heard of these cabin kits where you purchase one thing from one person, and they send you every piece of the cabin, and you like everything is laser cut, and you just get a builder to put it together like a Lego set?
I've heard
What
of
is your opinion on those prefab, pre-made, pre-cut cabins?
honestly, I've heard of them. I know people do them, otherwise they wouldn't be advertised. I've personally never had any experience with them. I don't know anybody who has because they send you the kit, but you're only as good as your foundation. What if your foundation's out of square? Whoever you got to pour it, wait, it's it. But you can't get mad at them because back in the day, I mean, you used to order a whole house out of a Sears catalog. I mean,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
shows you my age right there. I'm like, okay, you can order an entire house out of a Sears catalog, okay, and they're
Hmm.
still standing to this day. I mean, we have some in
Yeah.
our town, and you can tell, been like, yeah, that was this model and
Hmm.
you talk to your grandparents and be like, "Oh yeah, I remember when my neighbors did this," and yada yada yada.
Yeah.
But it's just so. I don't have any experience with it, but I'd be hesitant. It's one thing. A house is not a Lego set, so
Hmm.
and there's very little room for error. And then here's the other thing: what happens if one of the pieces damaged? I mean, where did you order this
Hmm.
thing from? It's like, are they going to make it right, or they're going to be like, oh no, we shipped it out through our quality controls, so it must have happened in the field or what? There's just too many like what ifs and red flags. Don't let me dog anybody because, like I said, but it's just there's a lot of hesitancy on my part to be like, you're. I think you think you're saving money, but I feel like you're you know stepping over a dollar to save a nickel, yeah, kind of thing.
Okay.
It's like now maybe I mean if here's another example, like we just drove out to Sturgis. I don't recommend that. It was 26 hours of misery. However, when you think the world is running out of room, like, no, we got all kinds of room. Go through Nebraska, go through
Hmm.
Kansas, but there's no trees. It's just flat. Like, what are your building materials? Where are you going to go? So, in that sense, if you're out in the middle of nowhere, maybe you do get a kit.
Hmm.
It makes sense. So, I mean,
Yeah.
there's an argument to both sides. So,
Okay.
but I personally, I've never done it. But here I'm spoiled. You can go to a hardware store or whatnot. You're within 30 miles of anything that you could possibly want, and then that way, if there has to be a change in the field, you can fix it then and address it.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for giving me your opinion. That's going to be a great little clip. I'm know for a fact I'm going to have like a 3-minute YouTube video that's just
All
that
right, boom.
little. Yeah. Just because I know that people are searching for that type of stuff. So that's why
Mm,
I asked. Here's another segment or clip for you. You recently spoke that you have experience with container homes.
mhm.
I have a whole video that I'm working on ripping them apart. I think that per- personally, I just don't think container homes are a great idea. Now, I say that to say I don't think they are efficient, and I don't think they're the smartest way to build a small space. Are they awesome? Absolutely. Do they look sick? Absolutely. Are they really cool? All that type of stuff. Would you make a ton of money with a container home on Airbnb and short term rentals? Absolutely. I'm not saying that at all because I say the same thing about A frame homes. And I own an A frame in the Catskill Mountains. But is it a smart, efficient use of space? No, it's
No.
stupid. It's
Yes.
I I know that, and my A frame in the Catskills is rented all the time on Airbnb. So like I know that they have a purpose. But what is your opinion on container homes, and like what's kind of your take on them? Because I don't think that it's the smartest idea. I see a lot of people thinking that they can build container homes cheaper than they can build something else, or that everyone has different reasons. And I personally believe that there's so many things wrong with it that I'm like, just go build a stick cabin.
So here's the thing with container homes. I'm kind of with you. I think they're eclectic, and as a builder, they're fun for me just because you get to
Okay.
use all your skill sets to bring this thing in. They are not, and I repeat, are not do-it-yourself friendly. Like this is not something like, hey, I'm gonna get a container home and I'm gonna go do this. Okay, do you have a welder? Okay, it's one thing to own a welder; it's another thing to know how to weld. Do you have a plasma
Hmm.
cutter? Do you have a grinder? Because they're metal. You can't just fabricate stuff out of thin air with this. And then how do you attach the wood members to the metal? You have to have some sort of skill set. Can it be done? Absolutely. Is it cheap? No. Is it cool? Absolutely. Those things are.
Okay.
It's kind of like the Airbnb, like you said. The A-frames, are they efficient? No. Do they look cool? Yes. Can you rent them out all the time? Yes. Because they're eclectic
Hmm.
and people are like, hey, I'm only going to be here for a short time. So you don't look at all the stuff that, would bother you as a long-term, owner or resident. You can deal with
Yeah.
it. It's kind of like going to the beach, a beach home. Like, "Oh, I don't care about this paint color or this tile." Well, you're only there for a week or a weekend. You don't care. But
Yeah.
if you're there for years, it's absolutely gonna bother you. They are a pain to insulate and weatherproof correctly. They are soundproofing. That's another thing. Building them out, moving them is not easy unless you have the equipment. I mean,
Yeah.
are you gonna get a crane? Do you have a lull? Like, how are you gonna set this thing in place? However, I will say if you want to go a deep dive, they're great to put on a gooseneck trailer and have a frame,
Hmm.
and it's a mobile RV that way, and it's going to be much better built than an RV you buy off the lot. I mean, you have a
Hmm.
mobile tank at that point. Um,
Yeah.
you know, um, but yeah, there's some nuances. Like for me, but I have the skill set. But it's so YouTube and HGTV have done a huge disservice to the population. Anybody can edit anything, and they're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, that's all
Yeah.
you have to do." And I was like, "You don't realize they Photoshop this?" But
Yeah.
I have the background. I was like, "Yeah, that didn't happen." It's kind of like you see the weight loss videos, and it's like,
Uh
that's a
huh.
completely different person. That's not the same person. But
Yeah.
most people they can't see the forest for the trees. They're looking like, oh, this is awesome, and then they get into it, and they're thousands. I mean, just the containers alone. I mean, you're $5,000 to $10,000, depending on what you get and where you get it to. And then all of a sudden you're like, I'm in over my head. What am I going to do? And then you have to Craigslist it for half off because who wants a container? So
Yeah.
you better do your research and you better know what you're getting into. Are they cool? Yes. If I could get around and have a tiny home community on some land, which I'm trying to fight codes now to do, I would
Mhm.
absolutely. I'd have one of each different facade. Like I'd have a little tiny country cat cottage. I'd do an A-frame. I would absolutely do a container home. Believe it or
Mhm.
not, we have. I don't know if you've heard of Gatlinburg or Pigeon Forge,
Yeah,
Dollywood.
yeah,
Right,
yeah.
right, yeah. There's a place where you can stay in covered wagons for like two hundred and fifty
Mhm.
dollars a night. I was like, the
Yep.
pioneers did this for free, and you bougie people
Yeah.
are paying
Yep.
$300 a night, and all you get is a bed and a canvas tarp. I was like,
Well,
I have missed the boats. Like I did something
yeah,
wrong in life. But yeah, I mean,
absolutely.
people want to stay in something eclectic. Tree houses, believe it or not, the tiny home tree houses, people are paying massive money because how cool would it be? Hey, we slept in a tree house over the weekend.
Absolutely.
It's eclectic, it's new, it's something different, but long term, it depends on your climate as well. Would I drop that thing
Yeah.
up? Would I drop it up in Canada and leave on it? No, you're gonna freeze. Like,
Yeah.
good luck. But would I drop it in
Yeah.
Arizona or the desert? Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, it just kind of depends on your circumstance. So everything has its purpose.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Cool. So I think again, it's just like it looks cool, but like you said, I think a lot of people for some reason think that container houses are cheaper. And a
Oh,
lot of people think that container houses are easier to build, like you
no,
said. And
no.
I'm like, I don't understand. It's the exact opposite. Like they're not cheap, like you said, just for the shell of the container, you're already a couple of grand in. And then to build, like you said, it's like, are you gonna have windows or like and do you feel comfortable cutting into raw steel or whatever the hell? I'm no builder, whatever the hell container homes are made out of. I
Yeah,
just see them and I'm like, it's just such a big no no to me. Where, especially in thinking about the fact that you can build a cabin, like a stick frame 2x4, I don't know how you guys call them,
yeah.
like construction, so much more cheaper with easier material. And it's easier for a layperson like myself to make any edits or changes in the future. If you're just somewhat kind of handy, you could do a little bit of work.
That would be my absolute best recommendation is stick frame it and build it yourself because at that point you can do whatever. Um, and back to container homes, here's another thing that people don't think about. What was shipped in these things? Like what chemicals
Mm-hmm.
and everybody and you want to put on your tinfoil hats later. Where do the majority of these things come from? China,
Mm-hmm.
overseas.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
they're notorious for lying.
International.
Yeah, yeah, international,
Yeah.
and nobody cares. They're just like, oh yeah, this is food grade. No, they shove anything and everything in those things to make the most money. Put
Mm-hmm.
them on over here, and then they sit in port for however long you want. Yeah, I mean, you've got to literally gut these things, and they're like, oh, they're using this chemical grade plywood that people are like, oh, this is a great subfloor. I was like, yeah, until you have cancer 2 years down the line. I was like, you need to rip all this out, like, and start
Yeah.
like all you're buying is a metal base, and you're going from there.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, is it cool? Yeah. Is it do it yourself friendly? Absolutely not. Like you have to have some skill set or know somebody who does, and you better have a
Yeah.
lot of beer to pay them because like
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
you're, you're gonna want it. You're gonna want it.
Yeah. I've had to pay a lot of people in beer, a lot of friends with beer to help me with my projects because,
I
like
am
you said, I've gotten in over my head a couple of times too.
Yeah, yeah. And honestly, let me tell people that goes a long way. Absolutely a long way.
Mm-hmm.
Figure out what their favorite drink is and, show a little appreciation, man. We'll bend over and we'll help you out.
Cool, cool. All right, so thanks. That's I think that was an awesome conversation on that right there. My channel is all about the business side of tiny houses, yurts, domes, tents, just all of the things that people don't really look at.
Mhm.
I see a lot of content about this type of stuff, but it's all like wanderlust, Starbucks, people pretending that they're living van life and they go into their home after they're done
Yeah.
recording. So my question to you is with the keep it tiny movement, because I don't want to say just the tiny house movement, as a builder, what are the things that annoy you the most about the general movement? And what do you think the biggest discrepancies are where like this is where truth ends And this is where like the fakeness of it all begins.
Oh, oh wow. Where do you begin with that one? That is, we could spend an entire podcast on that just alone. That goes back to my biggest gripe is, you know, I hate regulations. I think codes are a joke. I mean, if you're saying you're building something to code, you're doing the bare minimum. That's all codes is. It's like this is the minimum
Uh,
to keep this building standing. So if you're like, hey, I built
mm-hmm,
this to code, that's not a badge of honor. That's not something to
mm,
be prideful of or be like, hey, I'm awesome. No, that means you did the bare minimum. So try to
okay.
be better, do better,
Mm-hmm,
and I
yeah.
get it. Everybody wants to, save money. But I mean, there comes a point like this is your most valuable investment. You don't want to be the cheapest here. You don't necessarily have to
Mm-hmm,
spend $1 million. You obviously could, but you don't have to. And there's ways to do it cheaply. Also, it's not regulated in that anybody can do it. And so, and it's hard to tear these things apart. It's kind of like if you go inspect an RV, you don't know there's a problem until there's a problem. And then you have to, it's like, how do you tell somebody how much it's going to cost? Because it's all covered up.
mm-hmm,
You have to tear everything apart. It's kind of like exploratory surgery, and that's why everybody gets mad at hospitals. It's like we don't know how to
mm-hmm,
fix it. We know there's a problem. We don't know where it is, and then once we find it, then we have to fix it and work our way out. And people are like, "No, I
mm-hmm,
need a fixed cost," and that's where you have a problem.
mm-hmm,
You have to be like, and a lot of that is there's a disconnect in trust between contractors and the client. I mean, how many horror stories you have? This guy absolutely took me for a ride and like
mm-hmm,
didn't fix anything, said he knew what he was doing, but also I blame the customer. Like you should have known better. Like if you're, we work, max maybe to 6 o'clock at night. Max. Most of the time we're
mm-hmm.
there at 7 o'clock. We're wrapping up at 4 because it's manual labor. We're done. So when
Yeah.
you're back at your house, walk through it. Don't destroy
Okay.
anything, but like kind of check and see what's going on there. See, and that's the fault there. How also, if you're going to do it yourself, you got to think long term. Are you going to have this on a fixed foundation? Are you going to put this on piers to where you can build it? That's probably what I would recommend. However, a lot of people are like, let's put this on a trailer. Okay, that doesn't mean get on Craigslist and get the biggest trailer you can find and put it on there because what's it rated for?
Okay.
Are
Yeah.
you doing 7,000 pound axles? Okay, so you have dual axles on that. That gives you 14,000 pounds. Then you have what, roughly 2,000 pounds worth of trailer weight. Yeah. So now you're down to 12. Then you got the building material that you put on it, plus all your appliances, your furniture, and everything. You're going to max this trailer out. And then on top of
Mm-hmm,
that, how are you going to pull it? Most of these people, you see the van life, and there's nothing wrong with it. They're vegans or they're living their best life doing all that. I was like, guys, your Prius isn't going to pull this thing. I was like, you're going to
yeah.
have to get a truck or know somebody
Mm-hmm,
to pull this. And they're like, oh, I see those posts on Facebook all the time. Hey, I've got this. Can somebody please move this for me? The other
mm-hmm.
thing you have to consider is you can't just put these things anywhere. I mean, it is
Yeah.
very regulated here, and I think it's against nothing wrong with it, but I think it's a fight against the homes, and
Mm-hmm,
they don't want anybody and everybody just buying trailers and putting them wherever. Here, you have to
yeah.
have. They'll allow you to live in an RV or a tiny home, but it cannot be your permanent, residence. You have to have an
Mm-hmm.
active building permit, and your permit's only good for 2 years. Also,
Okay.
okay,
Yeah.
let's say that you have land, you have a family friend, and nobody's going to say anything. Nobody that you're not going to piss off the council to be or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Let's say that you moved into your parents' or friend's backyard and you did that. Okay. Now you also have to have the infrastructure to support it. Okay. What about power? What about water? What about, what about septic? Nobody thinks of this. I was
Mm-hmm,
like, nobody wants to go pee outside in the middle of winter. I was like,
mm-hmm.
do we do it? Yeah, as a guy, but I mean, try doing that
Yeah.
as a married man. Like, you want to get divorced? That's how you get divorced.
Yeah.
Like, go tell your wife to pee outside in the middle of winter. Like,
Yeah.
that's not realistic. So you have
Mm-hmm.
to think of these things, and those are the added costs. They're like, oh, I can build this for $20,000. Here, the average septic system, just starting off, is 10. Then you got to run
Yeah.
power. Are you going to do solar? Okay, that's great. What are you going to do when it's cloudy? I was like, do you have a battery bank? Like, what are you gonna do? Like, these are what people don't think about. So you have to have redundancies for everything. And
Yep.
I don't know if you're on TikTok or whatnot, but there's a lot of channels, and you've got to take it with a grain of salt. Some people take the best of every world, put together, and make it work for you. Also, people are
Hmm.
like, I wish there was almost, well, I guess what you could do is go Airbnb, go live in a tiny home, rent one for like
Yeah.
2 or 3 weeks. People are like, oh, I'm absolutely going to do it. And then you're like, dude, I don't have enough room in here for a thought. Try
Yeah.
being married in 200 square feet. Like, there's times like you can't just leave your bedroom. Like, y'all are together. Or,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
like,
It's,
like
yeah.
the only escape you have is the great outdoors. And most people don't think about
Yeah.
this. Like, they're like, hey, I'm going to save all this money. And it's fine. As a single person, it sounds fantastic. As a young, single, college age dude, I'd live in a cardboard box and be happy as can be.
Yeah.
I'm not saying those women don't exist, but my
Hmm.
wife is not that person. She likes the finer
Yeah.
things in life. So,
Absolutely.
and happy wife, happy life. So
Yep. Yep.
you
I
do
believe
that,
that for sure.
yeah. So there's a lot of nuances you got to think about. And it's also
Hmm.
like, hey, can you buy, just a shed from a big box store and convert it? Yeah, but have you seen the quality of construction? I would probably spend
Hmm.
$1,000, $2,000 more and have it stick framed and have it solid. Like, most of these guys, they're built in a warehouse, and some $10 an hour guy is just shooting nails whenever, wherever. You see nails coming out of the 2x4 and whatnot, and they're just haphazardly put together. So, 24-inch on center, just because you can do it and meets code, doesn't mean that it's a well-built structure. It's the same thing I tell my clients. Just because Lowe's and Home Depot sell it doesn't mean you have to use it. I was like,
Yeah.
hey, just there's all kinds of products that are gimmicks out there. They're like, hey, this is homeowner friendly. And I was like, there's a reason the professionals don't use this, and I'll explain why.
Hmm.
So, and it depends on your lifestyle. It depends on where you're going to put this thing. There's so many things that go into this. And really, your best bet, if people would spend as much time planning as they do building, they'd be fine.
Yeah.
But that's just it.
Yeah.
It's like they get all excited, and I don't want to burst their bubble. Like, yeah, excitement's awesome, but you need to plan this out. You need to think about
Yep.
this. And then at that point, the excitement stage of the building is assembly, and it's fun, and you're not going to have any problems. It's when you just shoot
Hmm.
from the hip and like, I'm going to go. And then you're like, okay, now you're too far in. I can't tear this apart to fix it. Hey, then it looks like an add on. And then you're mad. You're like, oh, this is acceptable. And it's not, because it's going to bother you. Like 6 months down the road,
Yeah.
you're like, oh, what was I thinking? But if you plan this out, and I mean everything, I mean, go through codes, design this thing, pick out all your materials, know where everything's going to go, you'll have a much better time and whatnot. And, I'm like everybody else. I do deep dives on YouTube and TikToks, and they're fun. I like to see
Hmm.
what other people have done. I learn something new every single day. Like, why didn't I think of that? Like, that is a terrific idea you know. However, you also need to have enough common sense to realize that looks cool, but that's not a good idea. But
Yeah. Yeah.
how did you do that? I tell my clients all the time, if you want to help out, that's fine. As long as it's not slowing me down, because I don't get paid by the
Hmm.
hour. You're only paying me per the job. If it doesn't slow me down, I want you to help. Matter of fact, I will teach you anything and everything you want to know as long as you don't
Yeah.
slow me down. I highly recommend you get a mentor or know somebody who has done this, or talk to people, get on forums, there's all kinds of things. Just do your research. If you do that, you'll be fine.
Hmm.
It's the people that like, oh, I'm gonna duplicate what they did, but they've never done it before. So then they're like, you don't know what problems you're gonna have. And maybe that's what I need to do. Maybe I just need to start a list and be like, these are the potential problems you're gonna have. And be like,
Yeah.
if you can address 90% of these, not that I'm gonna cover everything, but if you can cover 90% of this, you're gonna have a good time. You'll be okay. And then
Yeah.
maybe start, if I could figure out a way to monotonize getting paid what I know and not what I do. If somebody be willing to Venmo me $20, absolutely. Like, video conference, like, hey, show me what you got. This is what I would do, and kind of point them on the
Yep.
direction. And half the battle of do-it-yourselfers is they have all the confidence in the world, but they're missing that 5% that'll get them there. And I was like, if you
That's
can
me
hit,
right here.
You're 95%
That's me
there.
right.
You,
I swear I can build that.
hey, I do too. And
But the problem is I know I can't, and you can. You think you can build anything because you probably can.
well,
I know I can build
I'll
anything.
figure it out. Like I can't. I
Yeah.
literally learn something new on the job site all the time, and
Hmm.
I'm not perfect. I make mistakes, but I know how to fix it and make it look good. That's the difference. And I feel like you can get somebody 95% there, but you just have to have somebody confident in your wheelhouse to be like, hey, I'm so close. What do I do here? Get them over the hump and they can go. That's all there is to it. And a lot of it is confidence. You can do anything. It's like, but I don't know how to operate a skill saw. How do I learn? Start. That's it. And with
Yeah.
everything, just like what do I do, like investing or buying a house or whatever it is in life, start. That's your
So
biggest hurdle right there. Just start.
where do you think the disconnect is though on like you just went through a lot of very real issues with the tiny living movement,
Yeah.
the tiny structure movement. Where do you think the disconnect is and like what's kind of affecting people? Like is it too easy for us to say it's social media? Um
I think
or is it just like just calling a spade and it's just like, look, this is the problem? Because you're right, people do have very, very, very unrealistic expectations and views on these types of
Oh,
things.
and it's not just tiny homes. It's on everything. That
Hmm.
anything you buy, people just like, we need to bring you back down to, kind of thing.
Hmm.
It's like, there's a very big disconnect. I'd say social media is I don't want to blame it. It's kind of like blaming video games for gun violence. Like that's just,
Yeah,
dude,
yeah, yeah.
I played Call
It's
of
easy.
Duty. I played GoldenEye
Yeah,
and all this stuff growing. I never once have had a thought of shooting somebody. Not never
yeah,
once.
yeah, yeah,
Never once.
yeah.
And the same thing with YouTube. Like nobody wants to have a Debbie Downer on their channel the entire time.
Hmm.
They're like, these are all the problems you're gonna have.
I
Everybody
do.
just wants to see the glam and they want to see the
Yeah.
finished result. They don't like, oh, I hate to give them more popularity because I hate them. The Kardashians. I think they are the biggest joke. But dude, they didn't start there. I mean, look at the before and after photos. Nobody cares
Uh
like
huh.
the
Yeah.
progress.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, all this. It's like everybody just wants to see the good side of it, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's it's all about marketing and what sells, and I think it's money driven too. I mean, you look at what was that show back in the day that moved that bus show, that America's Home Renovation. You know what I'm talking about? They're like, move that
Oh
bus.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. At the end of the.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
I think ABC or did it. Man, every contractor I know, every tradesman, we're cringing. You cannot build a house in 3 days. You just can't.
Yeah.
Like, and
Yeah.
then you hear all these horror stories. They make national news, and like, it's like they're junk. You just cannot
Hmm.
do it. And it's kind of like HGTV. Oh, I'm gonna do a bathroom renovation over a weekend. No, you're not. You are absolutely
Yeah.
not. It's time and not rushing things. And oh gosh, I've gone on so many tangents. I forgot what the original question was, man.
No,
I'm
no,
like, truthful Tourette's over here. I'm like, guys, you're gonna have a bad day.
no. I
Like,
love it. I love it because again, that's my goal with my channel is to shine a true light on these types of things and to give people real world advice
yeah,
and real world tips that they can actually use. And I think you're helping out with that. You're giving us a lot of that good stuff right there.
I wish I was, I guess, on your level. I'm not very tech savvy. If I could figure out a way to, post it, I enjoy this. This is my passion. I would talk your ear off. If you get, like I said,
Well,
probably the best thing you can do is get a mentor. And
hmm.
believe it or not, you don't have to pay them because if somebody loves what they
Hmm.
do, I'll talk your ear off all day long as you're receptive and you want to learn. And
Yeah,
it inspires me because honestly, oh God, we can go down this rabbit hole too of nobody wants to work and yada yada yada. Is it really that nobody wants to work, or is it that we're not paying them and they don't have the passion to do it? Maybe somebody hasn't shown them, kind of thing.
hmm,
But there's also a disconnect too. Like, hey, you have to pay your dues. Like, you're not gonna
yeah,
come straight out of school making $100 an hour. Like, dude,
yeah,
I'm 40 years old. I own my own company, and I'm still paying my dues. Man, I was picking up shingles
yeah,
out of a ditch yesterday. I was like,
yeah.
could I get somebody else to do it? Yeah, but nobody was around to do it. You just got to do it. But yeah, if you could get a mentor, like I'd give you a lot of advice for free. Now, at some point,
Hmm.
free advice doesn't pay the bills. I've got to support the wife.
If someone is looking to build a tiny structure, what is the right way to do it for cheap? Because everyone's looking to build it for cheap. What is the right way that their tiny house, their yurt, their cabin isn't going to fall apart in under 10 years? Like, how
Yeah.
do you build it cheap but smart? Don't?
You can do it, and it depends. It depends on how you're going to live in it. If you're going to live in it as soon as possible, there's different methods. If you have time and you have some place to live, then you can, take years to build this thing and then do it right on the cheap. Do you have that?
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like the cost benefit of time versus money. If you have all the time, you can save money. If you don't have the time, you're not going to save money. Um,
So you
everybody,
can't build it cheap and fast.
now, well, it's like that.
That's,
Yeah, I'll give you three versions. Everybody's heard this saying. I got good, cheap, and quick. I'll give you two.
yeah,
Which two do you
yeah,
want? But you're not going to
yeah.
get all three. So you have to
Mm-hmm.
decide the ROI, what's best for you in your situation. Are there ways to do it? Yes. Um, I'm trying to think. You're not going to save it. Right now, materials at an all-time high. So where you're
Mm-hmm.
going to save the money, if you have the time and the labor and the expertise, if you can go salvage material. I don't know where you're at, but we have a lot of habitat research around here. I don't
Yeah.
know if you have like salvage yards or whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Don't go to just anyone. I'd hate to say that. Go to the affluent areas where there is a close one there because they're going to have the
Yeah.
nice stuff. You don't, you don't, you don't go to Goodwill in a poor area. You go to Goodwill
Uh-huh.
in a rich area because you want
Yeah.
the nice stuff. Go to a
Mm-hmm.
salvage yard that's close to an affluent area because honestly, we get a tax write-off. Number one, when I do demos and stuff like that, they're perfectly fine. Like I can't tell you how many times, oh, these cabinets are 2 years old. I just don't like them. What a bougie
Uh-huh.
problem to have. Well, I'm
Yeah.
not gonna
Yeah.
wait. I'm not gonna waste my time and putting these things on Craigslist or whatnot. Somebody wants these. What I will do is I will salvage them and I will take them to Habitat because I get a tax write-off. So
Okay.
absolutely, go
So,
do
so
that.
the free stuff out of those, oh well, they're not free, but the heavily discounted items at some of those salvage yards and those renew stations
Correct.
and those things, you think that they, if you look around, they are of good quality and they would be a
It-
good
correct. Now,
place to grab some material to put in your tiny
a
structure.
lot of them are either overstocked or they have a scratch or they're um, it just came in damaged. Like, I mean, how many of these pallet sales do you see? There's nothing wrong with them, but like a semi will overturn on the interstate. Well, all of a sudden, there's nothing wrong with the product, but now it's damaged, supposedly.
Uh huh.
So now you
Yeah.
go to all these like discount liquidated outlets, whatever you have, and you get them for pennies on the dollar. However, you have to have some knowledge as to what you're looking for and to be able, bless you. And that's going to be edited out. So, but you're going to have some knowledge of what you're looking for. So you can get
Okay.
material like that. And like discontinued items. Depends on what you're going to go through. You like if you're going to have tile or whatnot, and I'm not promoting anybody, but I mean, you go to here's another thing. Okay, you got to know your materials. So let's take tile for an instance. So I'll just bring it. There's a reason why some tile is so cheap. It's called seconds in the industry. I don't know if everybody's familiar with that, but that means it's not first run. It basically means they could be a 16th to an eighth off. And you're like, oh, that's not a big deal. I'm getting them for 20 cents a piece. But they're going to look like garbage. If you want straight lines and all of a sudden you're an eighth off on every single one, it's going to compound and you're going to have a
Mm-hmm.
bad experience. So make sure it's first runs, it's of quality, get your discount there. Also, here's another thing. If you're going to buy material and you have time, have a place to store it. If you have a covered barn or something, you have all kinds of time. You could spend a year searching for material and then just store it in there and nothing's going to happen to it because you're helping the warehouses out because you're liquidating their inventory for cheap, but then you've got a deal, but you got to have a place to store it. If you're just buying it for
Mm-hmm.
cheap, now you got a problem. Where's going to put all this stuff? Then you're going to go rent a U-Haul storage or whatnot, and then all your savings are out the window because those things aren't cheap every month. And then you forget what you even bought because you're just, and then next thing you know, you're on an episode of Hoarders. So you need to,
Yeah.
you need to. there's ways to do it. Look at that. Go to vendors. Um, Go to contractors and be like, hey, we can't return material after a certain point. So we're obviously not going to keep them. We're either going to throw them in a dumpster or, hey, trade off your time that way. They're like, hey, if I pick up your construction lot, can you help me with some of your unused material? Absolutely. Yes. Yes, all day long.
Yeah.
I now,
Yeah.
I don't want to, a bunch of tradespeople are going to be mad at me. I don't want to overwhelm those with every Tom, Dick, and Harry coming up there
Yeah.
and be like, hey, let me clean up your site. But I mean,
Yeah.
just ask. And here's another thing: come at them with some humility. Hey, don't
Oh,
don't don't
absolutely.
don't act like you're meek or anything. But I can tell. Here's another horror story. Let me go beat that. The worst client that I'm ever going to have. I can tell. Oh, I've done this for years. I just don't have the time, which automatically means I do not want to work for you. No, you don't know how to do it. You're a YouTube warrior and you have no clue what you're doing. I've got a client right
Uh-huh.
now. Hey, I've been a realtor for 20 years. I know everybody. Yeah, don't listen to your realtors. Like, and I hate to say that.
Uh-huh.
Like, there's some good ones out there, but it doesn't take much to be a realtor. Like, if you're going to listen to somebody that's been a realtor full time for years. Don't listen to somebody who just got the
Mhm.
realtor license and Google the handyman or whatnot.
Yeah.
Just don't. Like
Yeah.
they're con artists as far as I'm concerned.
What what are some other things that clients might do that would piss off their builder? And what are some of the
Oh,
good things that a client could do when they're chatting with their builder to get on their builder's, good side, so to speak?
the first thing, like I said, just be honest. Don't overinflate your capabilities. If you want to learn, just tell me. That way I can schedule it. Like I don't mind teaching you how to tile. I don't mind teaching you how to wire something up. Like my time is valuable. I don't
Yep.
want to, and so is yours. Like I don't want to drive all the way across town to change out an outlet. It's quick. YouTube has tutorials on them all the time. However, there's some nuances like with wiring and whatnot. One situation is not going to be the same everywhere. So, however, there's FaceTime, there's all kinds of stuff. Like, hey, if we're friends and we have a good relationship, I'll give you my personal number and we can video chat. I'll give you 15 minutes of my time for free and I'll walk you how to do it because one, I don't want to drive across town. It saves me time,
Hmm.
money, and it saves you time and money. Um, if you want to help, don't be don't be above a certain task because believe it or not,
Hmm.
there's something to learn about everything. Even picking up trash. Number one, cleanliness is godliness on a job site. Like
Absolutely.
that's
Yeah.
the first thing. Like if you're interviewing contractors, there's another good tell. Go look through the job site. How clean is it? Walk through the house. Is crap just laying everywhere or not? And that's obviously not always on the contractor. Sometimes it's on the subs, but ultimately there's no finger pointing. The contractor hired these people. He is the one to blame. So,
Hmm.
and that goes to the relationship between you and your subs. Like for me, I don't have a lot of subs, but the ones I do, it's in a subcontractor agreement. You're going to clean up after yourself. If I have to clean up after you, every trash bag I pull is $500 off your contract, and they sign it. And it happens
Yeah.
one time, one time. It's almost
Yeah.
like remember like messing up growing up. Your dad beat you with a belt. It only took
Yeah. You
once.
get that one. Yeah.
You're not doing it again, but you back
Yeah.
charge a subcontractor one time for picking up their garbage. By God, they'll go to Walmart, buy a broom, and I mean you can
Yeah.
eat off the floor. So
Hmm.
and so do that. Check that. If you want to pick up the site, believe it or not, you'll learn a lot there. You'll just learn a lot that you don't even know just by through osmosis. I mean, you're just like, oh,
Hmm.
okay, this is why you do this. This is why everything's run clean, and you make everything follow a line. If you want to help, be the grunt, like be the cut person. You'll learn how to operate tools. You don't realize you are, but not everybody's a Picasso with a skill saw. But once you are,
Hmm.
you can literally do everything with a skill saw. You don't need a chop saw. You don't need a table saw. You
Yeah.
don't need all these tools. Like you can do it with one.
Yeah.
Learn how to drive a nail. Everybody's like, oh, it's just a hammer and a nail. When I was growing up on a framing crew, you got two hits. If you couldn't hit that nail in two hits, they didn't want you. And then you thought we
Yeah.
hit the lottery when nail guns came out. Like, dude, we had
Yeah.
it made. So,
Yeah.
learn how to do that. Ask questions if you don't know. Don't be like, oh, I'm just going to do it because I think this is how. If you're not sure, 100% sure, we'll tell you, and we'll tell you the reason behind
Hmm.
it, why. Um, I, that's just if you want to learn on the trade. As far as not pissing off your contractor, the first thing you don't want to do. Everybody is budget conscious. Have a realistic budget.
Hmm.
Don't be like, hey, I'm gonna do a bathroom remodel for $10,000. No, you're not. Absolutely not. I
Hmm.
was like, only if you're going to do it yourself, and then you're going to mess up, and then you're going to spend $20,000 fixing your $10,000 mistake, and then you're going to be really
Yeah.
mad. Um, so have realistic expectations. Be honest with your budget. And most people don't want to do that. I don't have a problem, like I said, because I'm referral based. So most people are like, hey, this is my budget. What can you do? But I'm already trusted because I come from another
Hmm.
trusted source. And then I earn that trust when I'm on the job site. If you're just calling somebody out of the blue, you're automatically, there's a distrust between both of you. And I get it. It's human nature.
Hmm.
But just be realistic. Don't go, how can I cut costs? Okay, that's probably not how to word it. Like, yeah, there's things
Yeah.
you can rephrase. Be like, hey, this is my dream. I have this budget. What can we do to do this, to get this accomplished to where you're happy and you're happy? Because if you immediately start off the gate, how can we cut corners? Yeah, we're going to cut corners and we'll do it, but we're not going to lose money. I can tell you right now,
Yeah.
this is a business, not a charity. So
Hmm. Hmm.
where you think you're cutting and saving money, we're cutting somewhere else just to get it done.
Yeah.
And it's not unsafe. Not that, well, maybe sometimes
Yeah.
it is, depends on who it is. But I would
Yeah.
never put somebody in jeopardy because my name's on the line. But that's different than
Yeah.
somebody's like, hey, I've got a thousand
That you're
dollars
just
to do
finding
this
out the
job.
order.
Yeah. Just be realistic. And if you have red flags, honestly, that's between the consumer and the contractor as well. We've done a huge disservice. Like there just has to be trust. That's probably the
Hmm.
biggest disconnect. If you trust me, 99% of my clients, I have a key to their house. They're never there. I come and go as I please, and it's great. Now,
Hmm.
we'll have a good time with it. If they want to put cameras in there, great. I'll walk by. I'll do the Heisman. Like I'll entertain you. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
we'll have a good time. And I get it. Like people want to see what's going
Yeah.
on. But if you don't have that kind of relationship, I'd probably find somebody else. Like you need that relationship to where you don't need to babysit. Like you hired the professional. Like if you already didn't know what you were doing, you don't need to babysit me. So
Hmm.
that's the big thing. Back to doing it cheaply or not pissing off the contractor. Um, it all goes down to communication, and I'm not saying
Okay.
I'm not the most eloquent
Hmm.
speaker or whatnot. It's like, but if you can have realistic conversations and be adults about it and not walk away
Yeah.
mad and finger pointing and whatnot, you can
Hmm.
have civil discourse. And I think
Yeah.
that's a huge problem in today's society,
Yeah.
political or just personal. Like it, I mean, if you want to go deep dive, like even racial, I was like, dude, most people, we all get along. We don't have problems with each
Yeah.
other. But they go on the fringe and everybody's finger
Yeah. Yeah.
pointing
Yeah.
and yelling at each other. Like
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
like we can have a conversation. I don't have to agree with everything you do. You don't have to agree with everything I do. But I think just in the short time that I've talked to you, like we both laugh, we get along. I could absolutely buy you a beer. We could hang out and
Yeah.
do
No,
whatever.
that.
If
Yeah.
if you can have that kind of relationship and ultimately here's a good thing. If you can be friends with that person at the end of the day, you've probably got a good one.
Hmm.
But if you can't be friends
Yeah.
with that person, like and look at it this way, friendship aside, you can have arguments with your friends and maybe be mad at each other for a couple of days. That's okay. But at the end of the day, you're still
Hmm.
friends. That's a good
Yeah.
relationship to have. That's who you
Okay.
want on your team. That's who you want to do. But just be willing to have those conversations. And what's the hardest thing is contractors on our side, we hate telling people no. We absolutely do.
Hmm.
At the risk of losing the job, not so much me, but I just see if I was advertising all the time and just doing all these estimates for nothing and whatnot, I don't want to lose the job because I have bills to pay. It's money should not be a difficult conversation. I don't know why.
Okay.
And and
Yeah. Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and at the end of the day, and we've done a huge disservice to be like, hey, we bid it at this. We did not know this was going to happen. Change orders, just expect change orders. Even in new construction, you're going to have change orders.
Hmm.
Um, just have those realistic conversations and be like, okay, nobody likes telling the client, hey, you owe me an extra $1,500. Like that is not a
Yeah.
pleasant conversation to have. However, if
Yeah.
you approach it the right way and explain it, you'll end up fine. And a lot of it goes down to planning. And
Hmm.
and honestly, I'd say 10% of the change orders is on the contractor's end. It's their fault, but 90% of the time, and clients don't want to hear it, it's their fault. It is
Hmm.
100% their fault because they didn't know, but they expect the contractor to tell them. That's not my job to walk you through it. I will walk
Hmm.
you through it. Yeah, like absolutely, I have no problem. But I did not know that's what you were assuming. And everybody knows what
Hmm.
assuming does. If you don't,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
read between the lines. So
Yeah.
um, there's a lot of that. But honestly, I probably have maybe one a year that just goes south, and it just happens.
Hmm.
Like it's
Hmm.
as much as I do, even as a one man show, I do a lot. You just have one, despite your best efforts, everything goes wrong. Everything.
Hmm.
Whether it's the vendor, whether it's material comes in damaged, whether yeah, during the demo phase, you're just like, oh my goodness, what have I gotten in myself into? And then you have to work. You're already committed. You have to make it work. But at that point, you have to understand if you can't come to an agreement, the contractor will walk away, and then you're going to get mad,
Hmm.
and then you're going to have to find
Yeah.
somebody else, and that is the
To
worst
pick
thing
up
that you
from
can
that work.
do
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I can tell you right now, I can't tell you how many times I'll go on a consultation and they're 50% through, and they're like, "Hey, what can you do?" And I was like, "I can start over." And they're like, well,
Hmm.
no, we can salvage this. I was like, no, because the last person that touches it warranties it. I don't know how it was installed. I was like,
Hmm.
I don't know how this went. So once you're there, you're committed. It's kind of like a surgery.
Hmm.
Like you better have a good surgeon.
Yeah.
Like once he's in there, he's committed. He's not
Yeah.
just going to open you up
Yeah.
and close you back up. Well, maybe
Yeah.
there's some
Yeah.
instances. I'm not that smart, um, but yeah, once you're in it, you're in it to the end. So make sure you do your research and make sure that
Hmm.
you have somebody that you can get along with, and
Okay.
like I said, if you're an adult about it, we can most problems you can work out.
When it comes to tiny homes, container homes, domes, all of that type of stuff, what do you think people are doing wrong the most? Like, what errors are you seeing out there that you wish you could like grab somebody and say, like, "Whoa, stop doing that"? Whether that be a trend that you see heavily in the construction or the use cases of them, or that just be like people picking the wrong structure too many times. What about like tiny structures do you think people are getting wrong the most, especially coming from your experience as like a builder for so many years? Like,
Yeah,
I'm certain that you probably look at these things from a completely different standpoint.
I do. I think it goes back down to capabilities. Like everybody's like, I can do this trade, this trade, this trade, but I can't. Let's say I can't frame. So then they sub it out, and like that's probably my biggest gripe so far. There is a place in Kentucky that I have been called out to, not in Kentucky, but they build the shells of tiny homes, and they're not any better than these tough sheds that you see at
Mm-hmm.
Lowe's, Home Depot. That that
Yeah.
that that's probably my biggest gripe. And I was like, you paid this money for this. I was like, you could have gotten a
Mm-hmm.
true craftsman, gotten a better quality product, and it's more structural sound than this. It goes back to the ROI, the investment. Like they're like, oh, this is a cheap cladding. I was like, there's a reason why it's cheap. Like there's a reason why you don't
Mm-hmm.
put particle board and MDF on the outside. It's glued together sawdust.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's
Mm-hmm.
like you're gonna have a bad day. Um, uh, not realizing, and it all goes back to what is the use? What is your final use for this? Is this long term? Is this short term? Is this just a getaway? Like, are you just
Yeah.
going to the lake for the weekend? I was like, at that point, it doesn't matter. But if this is going to be a long term or even a rental, you've got to consider the materials you're going to use in this and
Mm-hmm.
functionality as well. There's a lot of that. And they're like, oh, yeah, I can have all this space and I'll just loft this bed up here. I was like, I'm a grown ass man. I do not want to crawl in a 2 foot
Yeah.
opening and then, like have a bad night or something and then forget where I am and then just knock myself
Yeah.
out and
Wake
get
up. Yeah.
getting a concussion. Like, as
Yeah.
a rental, that's okay. I can do that short term, but long term,
Hmm.
you probably want to rethink that.
Yeah.
A lot of it is, the whole thing about tiny homes is obviously, uh, you know, a, a, an easier lifestyle. Less is more. However, you've
Hmm.
got to maximize your space. Wasted space is probably my big, and that's with any house, believe it or not. There is so much wasted space
Hmm.
in the house, it's not even funny. You've got to realize how to maximize your space. Also realize where are you going to put this.
Hmm.
In the desert or a rainy climate, you may want to think about a different roof system. You know, you know, it all goes back to materials as well. Insulation, don't get on the bones of your build. Like you can always upgrade your aesthetics later. Like it's nothing like,
Hmm.
oh, this may not be the light you want, but not to be crass, but we call them boob lights in the industry. Get those little ten
Yeah.
dollar,
Yeah. I know those lights.
yeah, get
Yeah.
those $10 boob lights and put them up.
Yeah.
You can get your $1,000 fixture later, but they all emit
Yeah.
light. It's like, what do you want? Same thing with your plumbing
Hmm.
fixtures. Like your trim kits, those are easy to change. What's not easy to change is your rough end, your valves, everything that's behind the wall. Do not skimp on that.
Hmm.
Do not go to, Lowe's or, well, not to bash them. I'm going to get in a lawsuit before this is all over for bashing people. Like, do you have attorneys on retainer? But don't go there and don't get the cheapest possible thing. Like, there's a reason it's
Hmm.
that cheap. Don't go getting, not to knock the mobile home industry. Don't go get mobile home parts. There's a difference
Hmm.
between, if you look at the model numbers, if you Google, let's say, just a Delta fixture and you see two of them, well, why is one $200 more? And it's because it's an all metal body valve versus a plastic. What's going to wear out first, plastic or metal? Plastic.
It's
So,
easy. Yeah.
you're trying to save $200 for something that's probably going to blow apart in a year. And then you're going to have to rip
Hmm.
everything out that you didn't have to. So,
Hmm.
there's things you can upgrade later. There's things that you can do yourself to save money. Like, it, I, painting. Everybody thinks that they're a great painter. And same thing with drywall.
Hmm.
I was like, no, I mean, anybody can sand it, but it's not going to be a good finished product, what you want. Are you going to have drips
Hmm.
everywhere? Are you going to have lines everywhere? I don't mind. If you want to save money doing that and you don't care what the finished product looks like, that's fine. Um, there's things you can save flooring. I'm a big fan of, believe it or not, the LVP, the luxury vinyl plank. You can put that in
Okay.
anywhere. It's water resistant, it's scratch resistant, it's wear resistant. If you do have a leak or whatnot, it's salvageable if you dry it out. However, don't go get the stuff out of the box stores that's like 80 cents a square foot. That's so thin, it's
Hmm.
not the same as the $5 a square foot because you don't have the durable layer that's 20 mil thick. You have the 8 mil thick that it's not going to last you. Yeah, at the end of the
Yeah.
day, you get what you pay for. There's got to be some common ground between budgets and finished projects.
Yeah. Yeah.
The big thing
Oh.
is, you know, like I said, don't waste your space. And it goes down to planning. You know, like underneath the stairwell, you got to have something like don't just box that in. I mean, get some drawers, put a closet, do something, an access
Hmm.
hole. Run your utilities, your plumbing, your electrical cleanly. Don't just run them through every stud cavity. Like make them have a designated path. That way you can access everything if something goes wrong. Don't just go through every single wall. Then you've got to rip everything out. Like think about
Yeah.
how you're going to repair this in the event that something goes wrong. Like, and it's the same thing in the car industry. We all want to cuss out the engineers because they didn't put this together. They just designed it and they're like,
Yeah.
how do you
Yeah.
access this bolt to get this thing off?
Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah.
impossible. Like they're just somebody in a computer and doing their thing.
Yeah.
And you're like, you obviously have no real world experience because
Hmm.
nobody in their right mind would have done this way.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
if you think about it, that's probably my biggest pet peeve is, you know, wasting space, also using subpar materials and then covering it up and then realizing, yeah, at a later date you have a problem. The biggest thing that I see people skimp on is like probably your insulation, doors, windows, and HVAC. Those are the things that
Hmm.
I would not skimp on at all. Like those are the things that heat and cool your home. You don't have any thermal bridging and whatnot. That's going to allow you to be comfortable. Everything else is aesthetic. And
Hmm.
point simple. Like you do not skimp on the bones. of your build,
Cool.
and then know where
Cool.
you're going to put it. That's it.